And welcome everyone to this meeting Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. for a regular council meeting. And before we begin, I just want to start off with how impressed I've been with the partnerships we've created between our staff, our volunteers, our residents, and our business community during the incredible amount of snow we received in the first week of December. This is the result of everyone working together in a team approach to remove the snow and open the roads up as quickly as possible. The wet snow made it hard to push and of course quickly became ice packed on the road due to the warm weather and warm ground. The South Huron community took on the challenge, proving once again we are stronger together. So our staff put in some incredibly long hours, do what they could, and we are proud of each and every one of them. So on behalf of council and the community, thanks to each one of you that were participating in that. Moving on, we'll go to the amendment to the budget under item 1. Item 12.2 is a staff memo, and we will now call this meeting to order and ask everyone rise for Roll Canada, please. And we call this meeting to order and welcome everyone that's participating with us this evening, in the gallery, and also those that are participating from home. Welcome to those also, and welcome to our staff for being here this evening and to provide us information and facts that we can use to make the best decisions on behalf of South Huron. I'll now begin the meeting with our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. And as a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. And please ask that everyone please ensure that your cell phones are turned off or are muted. Thank you for that. And turn to Ms. Carlson, please, item 3.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as amended.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures this time? And not seeing any, we move on to our presentation and our delegations. We welcome our friends from Lambton Shores, His Worship Doug Cook, and their CAO, Mr. Steve McCauley. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor Finch and members of South Huron Council. As said, I'm Mayor Doug Cook from Lambton Shores, and our CAO is Steve McCauley. Steve's a lot more familiar with this room than I am. But no, I appreciate you having us in here tonight to talk about Huron Shores Area Transit. And we just hope that this is something that is a continuation that we can look forward to moving on. We know where it's came from in the beginning, 5 years that it's been kind of working towards the progress that we've made. But we do know that the funding is coming to an end in March. So with that, I will turn it over to our CAO to speak to the presentation.
Thank you, Worship. So tonight's presentation will be fairly quick. I'll walk through kind of some background, explain how our budget is made up and in the transit system, and then kind of the options for moving forward. So here in Shores Transit System was created in 2020. We survived COVID. It truly took off after COVID. The funding source for the transit up to today has been community transit funds, what we call CT funding, and it has funded 100% of the program. Over that time, we spent roughly $3 million to run the program, and as I said, is growing kind of exponentially over the last few years. The service area population is about 38,000 people. We service from Lambton Shores. We go to Sarnia. We have a lot of pickups and drop-offs at the college. One of the more successful components of the whole system has been our employment bus, which will move people from various parts of our catchment area, but particularly from Lambton College, and transport them to employers. And I know some all the way up into Exeter, and I think Huron Park. So next slide. I'm not going to read all these through it, but since 2021, we've increased our ridership, tripled and doubled our ridership every year. 2024, we're seeing a doubling of it again. We expect to hit around 32,000. We might be a little shy of that, but we're on track to be close to that. Which, when we compare to other rural transit systems like ours, is phenomenal. When we talk to our counterparts in other areas, our system has really done well. And you'll see the issue we have is funding that we need. The summer beach bus has been popular. People like to go to the beach, so that's been very popular. And again, that employee shuttle bus has been very popular with employees. I know, as I said, Exeter, I know McDonald's in both Grand Bend and Exeter uses it. I think there's a number of businesses in Grand Bend use it. I think we may even hit Hayter's Farm as well. So it's been very successful. And again, moving students that normally wouldn't be able to get to those jobs to be able to get to them. Next slide. So this is a map. It just shows our current routes. So we have 4 routes. Route 1 is the one in Lambton Shores that gets us down into Sarnia. And then we have the route that goes to Exeter, through Exeter, Lucan, and then joins into London. And we hook up at all these locations. We hook up with other carriers. So somebody can get on a bus in Grand Cove, from Grand Cove, get on a bus in Grand Bend, go up through Exeter, through Lucan, get to Masonville, jump on another bus, and go where they need to go. So we try and interconnect where we can. We have another route that goes north up through Bayfield and to Goderich. And then we have another route that heads south and goes through Elsie Craig, Park Hill, that, and ultimately Strathroy. So that area. Our 2 best routes are the Lambton Shores route and the South Huron route. Those are our 2 by far best routes. In the proposal that you'll see later on, you'll see that we're proposing to change the northern routes to a non-demand route, where you would actually call and book a pickup, still at a bus stop, so we're not coming to your house. But that way, if there's nobody that wants to go anywhere to the north on a Wednesday, we just wouldn't run the bus and save that fee. So that's one of the options we're looking at. Next slide. So Route 2, as I said, is the one that goes through Exeter. We have all the stops there, so quite a few stops. So there's lots of opportunity to get on the bus through South Huron. And I've got the totals there for the number of people that ride the bus. So I think 18,000. I can hardly see that number myself, but that's what we see that stops that go through South Huron. So again, it's our second biggest route is through South Huron. Next slide. So there's our example of our ridership, annual ridership. So you can see how we've grown it every year from 2021 when we were transporting 1,400 people to now we're looking at 30 to 32,000. So huge uptake. Next slide. So just a little bit about how we operate. So as all of you are aware, budgets are simply made up of revenue and expenses. It's as simple as that. On the expense side, we really have two expenses. We have our contracted services, which is Boyego. They operate the buses and supply all the drivers. And then we have some administration. So we have one FTE that works in our office that runs the system, does all of the marketing, all of the advertising, all the scheduling, all the, hey, the bus didn't show up on time calls. That's what that one FTE does. On top of that, not included in the budget are things that Lambton Shores has absorbed, is things like me, our treasurer, who does all the financials. All of our social media and communications work is done through obviously our communications specialist. So no, we haven't put any of those costs in. We've absorbed those. So expenses are just those two items. The revenues are made up of really 5 different things. The bus fares, which account for a portion of the revenue, although one would hope that they would cover the cost of it. There is, like many of the services that the council runs, bus fares there's a transit system around that gets covered by bus fares. There isn't an arena that gets covered by ICE rentals. That's the way it is. So with bus fares, advertising, we try and take advantage of advertising when we can. So there's some revenue that comes in there. And then really the 3 big ones are provincial gas tax, this new funding that's out there called the Ontario Transit Investment Fund. And the last one is contributions from municipalities, from us. Next slide. So I want to talk about, I think most of those are fairly straightforward with the exception of the gas tax funding and the OTIF funding. So the provincial gas tax funding, I want to make it clear that this is nothing to do with the federal gas tax funding you get for roads and bridges and sewers. This is a totally different pot of money. It is dedicated only to transit. And the only way you can access that money is if you operate a transit system. It is a formula-based fund that is, and it's fairly simple how they do it. They have a pot of money they collect through the gas tax. That pot gets divided up to anyone who applies for it that runs a transit system based on your population. So if as a collective, everybody that applies has a population of 1 million and you have a population of 100,000, you're going to get 10% of the population portion of the fund. That's a big number. I mean, obviously it's way more than 1 million people that apply, that are the population. So the numbers end up to be small in percentage, but significant in dollars. And then the other part is ridership. And again, same type of thing. They take the total ridership, you get your portion of the ridership, but the split between population and ridership is it's not equal. So 70% is dedicated to population and 30% to ridership. So ridership doesn't play as big a part in the formula. The other interesting aspect of the gas tax funding is that a transit operator, so in this case Lambton Shores, can apply any municipal gas tax allocation where they offer service. So we can apply for and access your gas tax allocation if you commit money to the system. So you'll see when we look at the numbers, we've counted on that gas tax money, and that's so we would count on money from South Huron, Blue Water, us, Lambton Shores, North Mid, and then we understand, talking to our rep at the gas tax division, that they are going to tweak the language so that we can collect from Kettle and Stony Point's allocation as well. They admit that was a oversight on their part to not include them. So that's the gas tax portion. There is a clawback at 75%, so they won't fund more than 75%. We're not going to hit that threshold, so that won't bother us. So next slide. So the new funding that's out is the OTIF, Ontario Transit Investment Fund. So this is a one-time fund that they brought out. It is an application-based ongoing stream. So there's no deadline. You don't have to apply by a certain date. You can apply when you get the application ready. All municipalities, all Indigenous communities, and not-for-profits are eligible to apply. So this fund is supposed to supply Toronto to, Kettle and Stony Point. They'll fund up to 50% of the cost on an aggregate. So what I mean by that is at the end of, it's a 5-year commitment, 5-year program. At the end of the 5 years, the maximum they would fund is 50%. They will fund higher in each year. So you'll see when we laid it out, we had them funding 80% of the first year, but then it reduces down to, at the end, I think it's only 12% or something like that. So, but at the end, when you calculate it, it's 50%. The disappointing part of the fund is that the total amount available is $5 million. So to put that in perspective, as I said at the beginning, we spent 3 to run our system for that number of years. Our last round of CT funding, which covered 2 years, and it was only for rural systems. The total fund there was 14 million for just those rural systems that they funded, and out of that, I think we got another million. So it's a very limited fund, and is aimed at growth and gaps within systems. So it's not really meant to be ongoing funding. Nonetheless, we are going to apply for it. We're going to make some tweaks to our system and see if we can make the pitch. I think I covered everything in there. So next slide. So these are our budget projections across the years from 2025 through to 2029. And you can see the shortfalls there of roughly 250,000. And those need to be funded through municipalities at the end of the day. So I won't go through all those numbers. They're fairly straightforward. You can do the math. If we go to the next slide, I think we'll see the municipal contributions. Yeah, so here's the municipal contributions. Again, it's based on population. And you see, again, the funding is phased in, starting 80% and going down each year. So you'll see that you start out with a fairly small number, you end up with a fairly big number, but that average on the far right-hand side would be the average annual cost. So for South Huron, I think it's 63,000 and change. I think Lambton Shores is 73. And then South Huron and Lambton Shores are the 2 biggest players in this. So those are the biggest ones. And then it's less as we go down. So the notes on there are that the numbers we're showing you are based on us getting that OTI funding and gas tax. We're confident we'll get the gas tax because it's simply a calculated you're owed it kind of thing. We've never applied for it because we've always had 100% funding from the CT funds, and tough to make a case to get that money when you're already funded fully. So we're confident in the gas tax. On the OTIF, we're going to take our best shot. Obviously, the numbers change if we don't get that funding. what happens if we don't get the funding? That's something that we'll have to look at. There may be some changes. We've been talking to Voyago a few times, and there may be some changes we can make to the systems to scale them back. We will look at which routes do well, which ones don't. I think the mayor mentioned, or we've talked about at the council, that we think that the employment busing is pretty important. So we may have to look at other changes if we aren't successful with the ITF funding. We hope to be, in which case that would be the number that we'd be looking for. The other thing with OTIF funding is we are required to have a project team put together. What we've suggested is that the project team be submitted as the CIOs of all the municipalities as the project team. We talked about it kind of different angles, what would be the best. We think that would work the best because the CIO will have a direct connection with council, and also, as important, have a direct connection to staff, so that when we need help with a bus stop or we need help with something like that, we'll have that connection with the person that can get it done. So that's the project team we would propose to put forward. And there's nothing about having, it really just says you have to have a project team, and who are they, and kind of what's their role. So next slide. So this is the ask, and it's simply that they agree in principle to that contribution, and that South Huron agrees to allocate the gas tax to us, and that the South Huron CAOs be designated to form part of the project team for the OITF application. And I think that's the end. And your worship, with that, is there any questions? We'd be happy to.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to say that, as we've seen the ridership grow, we give a lot of it to credit to our Susan Mills, who used to be with the Chamber of Commerce in Grand Bend, and she came over to us to take on the transit. We didn't really have very good transit marketing people in the beginning, but her knowledge and skills, and just networking with the businesses locally that she knew before that, plus with the college, has really expanded the ridership. And as you can see, the numbers are, really great. And that's the challenge with what we're facing now, is that if you don't keep those numbers, if you don't keep the buses, those people don't get employment. Secondly, the businesses don't get the people that come to their employment. And that's the challenge that we're facing right now. So not that we're begging for anything, it's just that if we can ask you, on your end to think about it, that's what we need to do right now. And as Steve said, there's questions, by all means, fire them out and we'll try to get them answered. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the presentation. It's an eye opener. It's nice to see those numbers. Just the question, is there an employer contribution? I guess is my question.
So through you, your worship, to the deputy mayor. So there's no direct contribution. Frankly, we've asked, and we haven't had anyone step up to contribute. I'll tell you what they do though, is they do buy passes for their employees. So that's the way they contribute. So there may need to be some adjustments made there with those passes, or one of the thoughts we had was a guaranteed number of passes that they can keep themselves, so that as an employer, I buy a pass for Mayor Cook, and then he decides after a couple months he doesn't want to do the job anymore, and he leaves, and he what's happens to the pass. But if we have employer only passes, potentially we could have a system where he could let us know that Mayor Cook doesn't work here anymore, but we've hired Deputy Mayor Dietrich, and so he could use the pass then. So those are some of the ideas we're trying to come up with, to try and get them to pay, frankly, more of the share of the ridership.
Any other questions? Councilor Oak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, guys, for the presentation. Quick, couple questions. So if you're not successful in getting the transit investment fund, any idea what those numbers would look like per municipality?
So through you, your worship, I don't have it off the top of my head. Although they would be, we'd have to take like 250,000 and split it up amongst us. So it would be substantially more. You know, and I guess from our standpoint, from council standpoint, what they asked us to do was like, we think this is a good system we're running right now and see if there's any way we can keep this system. And if we can't, then we'll have to either go back and say, here's what it would cost to keep this system, or we retract a bit and say, you know, here's some changes we would make, but still be able to keep some buses going. We've talked to Viago about what could they go down to. They've expressed that they could, you know, help us out in that regard. Potentially they could run some buses themselves if there was a, you know, but that's the catch-22. If it's lucrative for them to run it, it's lucrative for us to run it too. So, but they're willing to work with us. Obviously they would like to keep the business going as well. So.
And just to follow up, you mentioned that there's two routes that are, you know, the main driver of the system right at the moment. If you go to a call basis for the north route and the one that goes through Park Hill, Elsa Craig, Strathroy is maybe similar. You never know. What is the thoughts? Or I guess I have concern that some of our neighboring municipalities would not want to step up and pay that if they don't have a regular route going through their municipality. So just wondering, have you been to any of the other municipalities or any other feedback, I guess?
So through you, your worship, so we haven't been to any. I've had conversations with a couple. I can tell you, Kettle and Stony Point's working hard to try and figure out how they can help us, not only with their share, but even beyond. They see a real value in it, and they want to keep it for their members. So they're looking at funding they could potentially get to help feed into our system. I had a conversation with their CEO last week. They're trying their hardest. We've got a couple dates we've got a schedule for Lucan in January because they're interested and want to talk. So I have not talked. We haven't got to Blue Water yet or North Mid. So those are the two. But at the end of the day, that's where we got to find out what everyone's kind of where they stand, and then we can recalibrate and try and come up with some type of program.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Need, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation through the mayor. The municipal contribution, is that only covering the busing, or does that cover capital items? Does that cover stops and signage? Like what is all included in that 316,000?
Yeah, so through you, your worship. So the budget is the entire budget. So we've included everything. So what's in there would, you know, if we were to get the OTIF funding, gas tax, and everyone said, yeah, we're in, we'd have a program with a couple modifications, as I said, to a non-demand system, like we do now for the next 5 years, is what we anticipate, you know, and hope to grow ridership. You know, we've been fairly conservative in our growth numbers. You know, hope to grow that ridership and potentially make a system a little more, make it pay for itself a little bit more, which would just mean that we all pay a little bit less. So,
Great. Any other questions or comments? Well, thanks for your presentation. You make some very good points, supporting our businesses. And of course, as our housing developments continue to grow, this is something people are looking for when they move to communities, is their public transit. So appreciate your time and effort. Well done. Thank you very much. It's Mr. Collison.
The South Huron Council receives a delegation from Huron Shores Area Transit as presented by Doug Cook, Steve McCauley of Lambton Shores.
moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. My microphone was off for a moment there. Item number 7, number 8.1, please.
The South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the budget meeting of November 12th, 2024, the regular council meeting of November 18th, 2024, and the special council meeting of November 19th, 2024, as printed and circulated.
And the mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carries with 6. Thank you. Number 9, please.
That the minutes, agenda, packages, and correspondence of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Exeter Business Improvement Area, BIA, minutes of October 9th, 2024. Sable Bayfield Conservation Authority, draft minutes of October 22nd, 2024, and agenda package of November 21st, 2024. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, draft minutes of October 22nd, 2024, November 25th, 2024 agenda package, and 2025 draft budget. Centralia Community Park Advisory Committee, draft minutes of November 13th, 2024.
And the mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Next item, please.
The South Huron Council receives the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee draft minutes of November 21st, 2024, and the South Huron Council approves the recommendations of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee as follows. Reaffirm the location of the playground to the north and east of the pavilion and east of the hydro locates, and Matt Runge be appointed as a member of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Just more of a question, and no worries if no one can answer it right now. And it may have already been covered, which is why I'm gonna beg for forgiveness for asking the question, but the current location of the playground equipment and the bridge that goes across, what's going to occur with that once we move ahead with the new location?
Who would like to take that? Councillor Vaughn, comments?
Sure. Thanks for the question. We have no plans. If I can just carry on a little bit beyond that question. So in our most recent committee meeting, we did have quite a extensive discussion around location of the playground. And couple of things, we've been discussing this for a number of years about where's the best place to put this playground. And we're sort of put back a bit last spring, early summer, with the fact that we had some utility locates that played havoc with where we wanted to be. We have also had one of our more valued customers, the Men's Club, basically talking about having a need in that same property for a tent to facilitate events. So the playground itself is actually going to be more easterly than we originally envisioned, and actually even potentially go behind the pavilion. Parts of it might. We don't have a huge amount of money. We have about $80,000 to put towards this playground. So we need to go out to tender before, because every year that passes, things get more expensive. We have less playground altogether. We now also have less room to put a playground. So it's probably a smart idea for us to get out to tender with the money that we have and see what's doable with the location that we're proposing right now. Beyond the actual location, Matt Runge, who's the president of the Men's Club now, attended our last meeting, and it was brought up during the meeting that Matt Runge would like to, or he and Dawn, and I'm sorry, I can't remember Dawn's last name right now. Yes, thank you. had had a discussion and they wanted to play kind of a tag team in terms of the membership. So that Dawn would be the member as per our terms of reference, and Matt could be appointed as a alternate to him. So 2 people, but 1 vote. When I got the actual minutes, the draft minutes in the package, it basically said Matt Runge to be appointed as a member of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee, but that was not the discussion or the motion that basically happened at that meeting. It just haven't had a subsequent meeting, so not really an opportunity to rediscuss that with the members. So I guess what I'm basically putting out on the table now is we haven't gone through a formal interview process for an additional member to the committee. And so it's not just, as per our terms of reference, a simple matter of just appointing Matt, but to be an alternative member to Dawn is perhaps a potential, because it doesn't really change the flavor of the terms of reference or the appointees. So I guess I'm putting that out for council consideration, that maybe that's the way we should look at approaching it.
Councillor Oak, go ahead.
So what I'm hearing is that we should look at adjusting the recommendation here to have Matt as appointed as an alternate member. Would that
Councillor Vaughn.
That's what I'm proposing, an alternate to Dawn, not to just anybody, but to Dawn, as was stated in the actual meeting.
Very well. Any other comments, Deputy?
Do we have to change this in our terms of reference? I guess that's my question to staff.
Turn to our staff. Madam Clerk.
Through the chair, so the committee's terms of reference just mention that the committee will be composed of a minimum of 5 committee members, as well as that there is 1 committee member is appointed from each council, so each council has 1 representative. That the committee members would be appointed by South Huron Council, and that any appointments for new committee members should be through the municipal procedure, so a recruitment process. So if this is an alternate rather than a new member, like as a new voting member, then I would say we council could amend the resolution to indicate that.
Okay, so I look this council. Would you like to make an amendment then? Or how would you like to proceed? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, I would like to make an amendment to be consistent with what was the discussion and the motion passed at the committee,
Very
which
well.
is
We'll wait for our clerk to prepare that amendment so we can vote on that, and then we'll go back to the original motions on the table.
So the motion to amend would read that that alternate member for Dawn Wayne be inserted into the resolution, so that should council pass the amendment, it would read that Matt Runge be appointed as an alternate member for Dawn Wayne of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee.
So moved.
so moved.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Oak, seconds. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Call the Councillor Neeb, you had something?
This is a clarification. We're not changing are we changing the terms of reference? Does this trump the terms of reference? I'm just kind of.
Through the chair, to clarify, this does not change the terms of reference. The terms of reference notes a minimum of 5 members. This would just appoint an alternate for one of the voting members.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there any further discussion on that amendment? Okay, so moved and seconded. I call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Turn to the clerk.
So the motion on the table would be that South Huron Council receives the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee draft minutes of November 21st, 2024, and South Huron Council approves the recommendations of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee as follows. Reaffirm the location of the playground to be north and east of the pavilion and east of the hydro locates, and that Matt Runge be appointed as an alternate member for Don Wayne as a member of the Dashwood Community Advisory Committee.
Thank you. So we need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor moves, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Is there any further discussion on that? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Okay, number 10, please.
That South Huron Council receives planner report dated November 22nd, 2024, extension of draft plan approval subdivision 40T 05003 Taylor. And that South Huron Council recommends the County of Huron approve a 3-year extension for draft plan approval for subdivision file 40T 05003.
And is there a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Discussion, please. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess I've just was reading the report here, and I'd like to suggest that we go to a 5-year renewal of this extension versus the 3-year that the planner is recommending based on the information that we've received in our package.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Is there a Councillor Vaughn? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. This is a developer that's been in Exeter and moving along since 2006. He's been delivering different types of housing to our community. I don't anticipate, if he asked for 5 years, he's probably got a plan to continue building houses for the benefit of Exeter for the next 5 years. So in the interest of sort of removing red tape, at least that's the way I'm kind of looking at it, nothing's really going to change in 3 years. He's going to want to come back, except he's going to have to pay more money and people are going to have to do more work. And so I'm thinking he originally asked for 5 years. I would support 5 years.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Just more of a question to Selena, just about the difference between the 3 and 5 years, and why the suggestion to reduce it to 3 years. If just a little more of an explanation.
Thanks. Welcome, Selena. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, there were sort of a couple of reasons as to why staff felt 3 years was appropriate. I think the aim was to strike a balance between working with developers, but also keeping, developments accountable to being registered and coming online. In this particular instance, we just didn't see the justification in the extension. As noted in the report, this is the oldest sort of on the books draft plan of subdivision in the entire county, not just in South Huron. And we just didn't see the planning rationale for the longer extension. The goal in the sort of standard 3 years is to ensure that these developments can be reviewed under current planning legislation, which they're still subject to. So for example, in the past 4 years, we've had now 2 different provincial planning policy statements. The other rationale was to sort of, I think, just ensure that extensions are not just being granted under any circumstance, and to sort of indicate that there needs to be like movement happening and reasons as to why perpetual extensions continue to be granted, which wasn't felt to be the instance here. So that was why the 3-year extension was requested, sort of with the suggestion that perhaps it may be appropriate to be the last extension granted.
Thank you, Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Selena, for your answer. I guess I agree. Mr. Taylor's slowly building the residential area there. I do know that he's also built another unit that was a duplex on Huron Street this past fall as well. So he's definitely building other properties as well. So I think the family's been a valid and valued contractor in the municipality for a number of years, and so that's why I was suggesting that for a smaller builder, it's tough to come up with the funds to be able to finance a further phase at this time until he sells a few more out of phase 2. So that's why I'm recommending giving the further extension depending, as far as the timelines of further development.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'd like to speak to this if there's no other comments. Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
Thank you to the chair. Selena, did Mr. Taylor asked you why it was 3 years, or did he kind of hint towards he may have wanted 5 or more? Or just how, I wasn't in on that conversation.
Selena, would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, through the mayor, I didn't speak with Mr. Taylor directly. I spoke more so with his appointed applicant. And yeah, the reasons are somewhat outlined in the report. Mr. Taylor has taken a preferred pace in terms of when he's he's looking to develop as he brings lots online. He feels he has an adequate supply of building lots for the next couple years. And economically, he just doesn't wish to enter into that development agreement and put up the funds necessary at that time before he sells these additional lots. Furthermore, the extension fees have increased as per the planning fee review last year. So he's hoping to avoid paying that additional fee in 3 years as if he were to look and seek another extension.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? I'd like to speak to this, Deputy. I'd like to thank Selena for her presentation and for following the rule of policy. She's done an excellent job as usual. But as with every rule, there is always exceptions that we must entertain. Otherwise, this would not be in front of us because it would just be simply processed by staff. With every policy, there's always council discretion and flexibility. We should always apply common sense in our decision-making process. Mr. Taylor is a third-generation Taylor who has consistently built many quality homes in South Huron, and this is now a fourth-generation family business, and we should all be proud of. This area is not going to be turned back into farmland or used for any other purpose. It is because of local contractors like the Taylor family that we as a community have become much more successful. This is a perfect opportunity to work with our local developer because he has skin in the game and has already shown commitment to the community. I fully agree with the 5-year extension because it makes sense to do so, described within the report from the planner. There's no harm in doing so, and once sales pick up, I'm confident you will see lots sell and more being registered. I'll be supporting Mr. Taylor's extension requests, but I thank Selena again for her excellent work on this project, and I thank Mr. Taylor for his understanding of due process, and I'll be asking council to fully support the 5-year extension. Thank you. Anything further? Not seeing. We have a mover and a seconder. We want to move amendment. Councillor Oak, amends to 5 years.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to change it to a 5-year extension.
Okay, and can we do a friendly amendment? I'll turn to Madam Clerk, or do you want to do an actual amendment?
We can either do a formal amendment or a friendly amendment. I was just, if I could get clarification, sorry, I missed the mover and the seconder on the first read through.
Okay, do you recall? Special policy?
Was Councillor Dietrich and Councillor Neeb.
Thank you. Would you agree to a friendly amendment, Councillor Dietrich and Councillor Neeb? Okay, I need your microphones on to record that.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So friendly amendment, I'll have the clerk read the amendment and the motion, please.
That South Huron Council receives planner report dated November 22nd, 2024 regarding extension of draft plan approval, subdivision 40T05003 Taylor, and that South Huron Council recommends the County of Huron approve a 5-year extension for draft plan approval for subdivision file 40T05003.
And to the mover and seconder, you still concur? Thank you.
Yes.
Counselor Dietrich also?
Yes.
Good. We have a mover and a seconder. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. 10.1.2.
That South Huron Council receives the staff report BPS 12/2024, limiting distance agreement, CJC Investments, Inc., and Corey Bilkey, and that bylaw authorizing the agreement be brought back for the required 3 readings.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, second by Counselor Neeb. Is there any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. 10.3, please.
That South Huron Council receives staff report ESD 25/2024, the results of the DWQMS external audit by NSF ISR International.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. 10.4.1, please.
Excuse me. That South Huron Council receives staff report CR 09/2024, Community Safety and Wellbeing, 2024 Update and 2025 Action Plan, and that South Huron Council approves the 2025 CSWB Action Plan and Budget Allocation as presented.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Counselor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just have one question regarding the budget. These figures that are mentioned in here, they're already in the budget as we have been talking about for the last couple of months, correct?
That is correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comments? We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? Carries with 6. Thank you. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council receives staff report FIN 23/2024, 2024 year-end funds transfers, and that South Huron Council authorizes the acting treasurer to make the following financial adjustments at the year-end. That funds levied through the 2024 capital and operating budgets approved by council which are not spent as specified in the budget be transferred to the appropriate reserve. That accounting transfers of any 2024 year-end surplus or deficits in each budgeted department be transferred to or from reserves or reserve funds as part of the treasurer's year-end procedures. That were funds approved in the 2024 budget to be allocated from the reserve fund for projects that were not completed or projects where the cost was below the budgeted amount, that those funds be left in the reserve and not be transferred to the reserve fund.
A mover, please. Moved by Counselor Vaughn and seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. Next item, please.
Through the mayor, if I can add, there is one more project to add to this list. The South Huron Rec Center roof replacement it was scheduled to be started, but it has been delayed. So I can go ahead and read that list. That South Huron Council receives the staff report FIN 24/2024, 2024 carry forward projects. And the South Huron Council approves the following list of 2024 approved projects be carried forward to the 2025 fiscal year for completion, and that the balance of the 2024 budget allowances for each of the respective projects be carried forward to the 2025 fiscal year. A, development charges background study. B, official plan and zoning bylaw study. C, active transportation study. D, water wastewater rate study. E, Dashwood Fire Station replacement. F, Dashwood Main Street sidewalk replacement combined with Huron County. G, streetlight upgrades Dashwood coordinated with Huron County. Street lighting Huron Park, Airport Line. Victoria Street East reconstruction, hydro pole relocations. Main Street North, connecting link. Main Street Dashwood water main replacement. Thames Road West water main replacement, joint with Huron County. Huron Park sewage pumping station upgrades, engineering. Thames Road West sewer replacement, joint with Huron County. Port Blake revitalization. Centralia park amenities. Q, South Huron Rec Center upgrades. R, Dashwood Community Center playground equipment. S, Kirkton Woodham Pool accessibility. T, South Huron Rec Center kitchen exhaust improvements. U, Exeter Cemetery fence project. And V, South Huron Rec Center roof replacement.
That's most of the alphabet. Is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn.
Yeah. So it's really a question about a project that I don't see on here, even though there's 22 projects now. Of course, I looked at last year's carryovers, and one project that's not on the list is the water wastewater master plan. And I know we had a presentation at council about the plan. But my last understanding is that it was still a draft, like there was still more work to be done. So I guess my question is that project now done, or is it going to be carried forward? Like, I'm looking for the plan.
Mr. Sue Carlson. Oh, there's Mr. Giverson. Mr. Giverson, how are you? Welcome, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor Finch. Through you, Mayor Finch, the expectation is the water wastewater master plan, the consultant's work will be wrapped up before the end of the year, and the report, the final report will be presented to council in January.
Thank you. Comments, follow-up?
No, that's fine.
Thank you. Are there any other discussions? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. Call the question, all in favor. Carries with 6. Thank you. 10.4.4, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report FIN 25-2024, the follow-up for N Getty's pool correspondence, interest owing for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so thank you, staff, for the report that basically gave us more information in terms of, as I read the report, that South Huron actually earned interest on these funds of $1,321.99. And so I noticed it's just a straight information. There's no recommendation. And so I think we should be making a motion to pay this particular individual the amount of money that they've either asked for or that we earned by having this money. So quite substantially different from the original thoughts that were shared at council.
Very good. Any other comments at this time? Okay, Councillor Oak.
I would agree with Councillor Vaughn that in light of this information, and thank you to Kate and staff for putting this together. You know, I think I'd like to make a recommendation that we recommend what they had originally requested be paid back to them as interest.
So if we're going to do that, we can do an amendment, or we can just receive this as information and then make it another recommendation. Madam Clerk, how would you like to proceed?
If we could proceed with receiving the report and then a separate motion.
Very well. So we have a mover and a second to receive the report, and we can hold on file what you're suggesting. Is there any further discussion on the receiving of the report at this time? Not seeing, we have a mover and a second, or call the question, all in favor. That carries with 6. And then you'd like to have a motion read. Councillor Oak, your comments.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we compensate for the value that they were requesting, which is less than what the interest that we earned on those funds based on the report.
Okay, thank you. We'll get the motion prepared first, and then we'll go to questions, okay?
That Nancy Geddes Pool be compensated $1,233.42 as outlined in her request letter of October 27th, 2024.
So move, Councillor Oak.
Yes.
Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Seconds. Is there any discussion? Not seeing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Okay, next item. Madam Clerk or Sue Collins, notice motion or?
No, no notice of motions
No,
were
they're not.
received.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go 12.1, delegations from previous meetings. Anyone wants to discuss item 1? Let's see, item 2. Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Thank you through the chair. So the item 2 is the request for an Exeter dog park. And there's a few items. We received a delegation. We also received a letter from the South Huron Soccer Association as well too. It's been ongoing issues too with usage of the soccer fields and with people letting their dogs run. And it's great that we've been able to use the soccer fields up into this point, but at the same time, there's been issues with people picking up after their dogs. So I think it'd be worthwhile for us to investigate a potential location for a dog park in Exeter. And I'm just wondering if we could direct staff to prepare a report that details some potential locations and estimated cost of location for a dog park in Exeter.
Okay, is there any more discussion at this time? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
Thank you to the chair. I had a discussion with Exeter resident about the dog park. And he wasn't in favor of, the soccer field either, but he did mention, what about McNaughton Trail there? Is there any land out there that would be available for a dog run? Or I'm not aware, do we own that or how does that work even?
So the McNaughton Park, we own that, but the trail is owned by the South Bayfield and landowners, but there's an agreement the South Bayfield runs that as the South Huron Trail.
Right.
So that's something that could come back in the report.
Okay, so like
Yeah,
there could be land available there maybe?
there could be, yes.
Yeah.
It would just depend on the report coming back.
Thank
But
you.
Before we go to mover and a seconder, is there any further discussion on this at this time? Okay, I'd like to speak to this also, but would we have a mover then to do that? A report, okay? So, okay, stand by. Would the clerk get that ready?
That staff explore location options and costs for a dog park located in Exeter and bring a report back for council consideration.
So moved by Councillor Neeb,
So moved, yes.
seconded by Councillor Dietrich, correct? Is there any further discussion? Can you turn your mic on, Mr. Dietrich, just to say yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'd like to speak to this, Deputy. So thank you. I'd like to commend Abby Hanna for coming forward to pursue a permanent, safe and dedicated location for a proper dog park in the community of Exeter. I'd also like to thank those that signed the petition supporting and championing this cause, as I support them 100%. The petition itself is very compelling. One of her comments that resonates with me is that not everyone drives. Although we have 2 established dog parks, Centralia's was a transformation of space that was an unused ball diamond. It was out of convenience to make better use of that space, and it's shown that it's now being very well used. Nowhere in any of our bylaws does it state that we can only have 2 dog parks, nor is there anything saying how many ball diamonds, pools, splash pads, wading pools, trails, parks, arenas, tennis courts, soccer fields, etc. we can have. What Abby was able to establish beyond any doubt is that there's a definite need for a dog park in Exeter. A dog is a valued member of the family. 30 years ago, dogs were not given the same respect in society as they are now. At one point, you could not take a dog into a store and would actually be escorted out if you did. Fast forward to today, and all stores accept service animals and many accept well-behaved dogs because times have changed and people have changed. And as times change, we as a council must change with them. My research finds that there are 7.9 million dogs in Canada with a human population of nearly 41 million, a 1 to 5 ratio. Some of the key words Abby spoke about that trigger a very serious look at her request were the word accessibility and comments related to a person's mental health. Overall, it is about being inclusive. The medical community has recognized that pets provide a great deal of emotional support and comfort for those that are experiencing mental anguish or trauma, and dogs provide that calming environment. The number one priority area for action identified in the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan is mental health and addictions. There are those who choose to live in Exeter because they have to be close to healthcare, pharmacies, library, groceries, and other conveniences that are offered simply because they do not drive or live with anxiety. With a population of 5,000 people living within a mile of the rec center and McNaughton Park, many can walk to a dog park if located there or nearby. Intensification and the fact that over 300 new homes are predicted in Windermere and Buckingham Estates alone will generate a lot of use, not to mention the current homes across Exeter. The new pedestrian crossovers will provide a safety mechanism to aid dog owners to safely walk across Main Street to a dog park. Council has forever subsidized baseball, hockey, pickleball, tennis, and swimming, which is excellent we do, but it comes at a price of hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, year after year, because we've always done it this way. And there's no end of subsidizing this in sight. Those user groups are subsidized by taxpayers in order for it to be affordable. The challenge is that many of these facilities are only used for a few months of the year and not by all residents. The rest of the time they sit idle, which is why Abby suggested using them in the off season. After all, her tax dollars are paying for them, but so are those who pay a fee to use them. This is where the dilemma is created, and which is why a dedicated space is needed and justified. I'd like to point out that on November 18th, 2024, South Huron was recognized by the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee for excellence in accessibility in the public sector for our renovations to the South Huron Rec Center. This is the first time we've ever received any award like that. In conversation with Julie Sawchuk, she advised me that she has been speaking to other municipalities across Ontario and is directing them to South Huron to learn how they too can be more inclusive. I would suggest that we take this opportunity to show leadership on this front of accessibility and our continued commitment to be inclusive to all residents. A permanent dog park is a one and done investment. No outdoor nets to maintain, no ball diamonds to maintain daily. What it does is offer a year-round facility that will benefit today's population and future generations. I've spoken to no less than 25 people about their interest in a dog park, and all are in favor of one, especially one that is split to allow smaller dogs to be separate from larger ones. A proper dog park will provide an increased benefit to an individual's mental health, and studies have shown that a strong relationship with a dog increases a person's overall physical and mental health. This in itself will help to relieve mental health issues and provide a long-term benefit for those that find solace with their dog. Another study suggests that it also helps dogs to socialize and become better behaved, thereby preventing conflicts in the overall community. By showing a united partnership with Abby on this initiative, we will be solving a problem where dogs now run free. And yes, we all know there's a bylaw that prohibits off-leash dogs, but surely we cannot be naive to think that the problem is going to go away by simply saying there's a bylaw. We have to be smart enough to know that conflicts will continue unless we show leadership. Turning a blind eye to it will not solve the problem, nor will kicking it down the road. There's also an economic benefit that Abby mentioned, whereby it brings people to town for those that choose to drive. No different than having the excellent sports fields that bring people in from across the region. And I concur with the recommendation that staff prepare a report to research the costs of fencing a preferred location and a timeline what could be achieved. In addition to the report, I was asked that staff reach out to the many businesses in South Huron that benefit from the sale of pet food and pet services, like our veterinarians and retailers, to ascertain if there's any interest in a sponsorship program on an ongoing basis for future maintenance of this permanent dog park, to create a capital fund to repair the fence or any future upgrades. I would suggest that Julie Sawchuk also be consulted so we are completely aligned for accessibility. This is an opportunity to show real leadership, and what I'm suggesting to council is a simple and practical dog park. I'm not talking about an engineer structure or something as complicated, as this is a very simple project that can be accomplished through the due process through a budget amendment and RFP if accepted by council. It does not need to be fancy, it just needs to be practical. So thanks again to Abby and her team who have rallied behind her on this very important topic. I'm behind it 100%. Any further comments at this time? Looking for a staff report, Councillor Neep.
Do we have a recorded vote?
Absolutely. Any other comments? And if Madam Clerk will read the recommendation also.
That staff explore location options and costs for a dog park in Exeter and bring a report back for council consideration. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Councillor Neeb called for a recorded vote. Councillor Vaughn,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dietrich,
Yes.
Councillor Oak,
Yep.
Councillor Neeb,
Yes.
Mayor Finch,
Yes.
Councillor Dietrich.
Yes.
That carries 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, next item, resolution number 12.2, Ms. Sue Colson.
That South Huron Council receive staff memo re Sunset Community Foundation amendment to budget, and that South Huron Council approve an amendment to the budget to provide $25,000 from the amenity fee wind turbine community funding reserve towards the Sunset Community Foundation.
And the mover, please, Councillor Oak and Councillor Neeb. Is there any discussion? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the benefit in investing in the community foundation. And at the last budget meeting, I brought up the fact that in our community safety and well-being plan, there's a lot of populations that the South Huron Community Fund targets that are also included as vulnerable populations within our community safety and well-being plan. And I think one of the things that's in our community safety and well-being plan is downstream interventions, which is making investments early on to prevent reactive situations later down the road. And so I thought I'd just go over a few of the organizations that are feet on the ground that are carrying out a lot of activities with these vulnerable populations that the Community Foundation has supported, specifically through the South Huron Community Fund, Vitality Fund, which is, so there's the Alzheimer's Society of Huron-Perth, there's the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, there's the Huron County Food Bank, the Thames Road Elanville Community Park, Eco Exeter, and then the Tanner Stepler Foundation. And these are all organizations that are carrying out activities that, again, downstream interventions, investment into the future, into preventing reactive situations. So I'm looking for council support on this. I think it's incredibly important that we continue to support the foundation so that it's sustainable in the long term, and that we can continue to support these populations. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
Thank you to the mayor. Can we have a recorded vote on this one?
Sure can, yeah. So any other comments at this time? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm confused. Did we not already do this in our budget? Like, is this not right for 24? And so, yeah, okay, we're going backwards 1 year. All right, sorry, pardon me.
Okay, are there any other comments at all? No? Okay. If there's no further comments, I'd like to, believe it or not, speak to this one also. Deputy? On the 27th of November, I attended the Grand Bend Legion for the Sunset Foundation Grant Awards presentation. I want to impress upon you the importance of the Sunset Foundation and how it positively impacts all of us and actually helps to alleviate financial impacts to our municipality. In just one example, a unique program that exists in the county, the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program that Councillor Neeb mentioned, has been operating for some time now, received a grant. A group of volunteers with accounting knowledge work with individuals that are low income earners and they prepare their income taxes for them. The grant pays for the mileage of the volunteers and related expenses. In 2022-2023, 1,102 returns were completed in the region with significant economic impact. They are able to inject $2.7 million back into Huron, Middlesex, and Lambton counties during those years. The most surprising aspect of those years' results was that almost 900,000 of that total went to parents through the Canada Child Benefit Program. You may be surprised to know that in Huron County alone last year, I was told well over $1 million in returns came back to families and individuals. This is a win-win all the way. So I will be supporting in the Sunset Foundations. Anything further before we go to recorded vote? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
That South Huron Council receive staff memo re Sunset Community Foundation amendment to the budget, and that South Huron Council approves an amendment to the budget to provide $25,000 from the amenity fee wind turbine community fund reserve towards the Sunset Community Foundation. Motion was moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Councillor Dietrich called for a recorded vote. Councillor Oak,
Yes.
Councillor Neeb,
Yes.
Councillor Vaughn,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dietrich,
Yes.
Mayor Finch,
Yes.
Councillor Dietrich.
No.
Sorry, you just, I don't know if you caught that. Can you say that again, please?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
That carries 5-1.
Thank you. 12.3. Turn to our staff for comment.
This memo was provided to council as we received an updated proposed OPP billing statement, which was actually about almost $8,000 less than previous year for 2024. So taking that into consideration, staff recommend that council reconsider the motion 458-2024 that was passed during budget to take $100,000 out of the OPP stabilization fund, as that's not necessary at this point.
Okay, comments from council members. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Well, this is a great news story. I agree of putting that 100,000 back into the stabilization reserve. The idea of the reserve is for swings like we were presented before this this announcement. So I would support putting that that money back into the reserve for this year.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
No, I'm in favor as well. And I guess one thing too, it's going on in the back of my head. This is only for this year, correct? Okay, so I think we need to definitely put that money back in because there's the potential that the cost is going to continue to go up the same amount plus more for the following year. So.
Okay, Clerk, do you have a comment?
So just for process, in order to reconsider a previous motion that was passed by council, I will need a motion from a motion to reconsider. So the motion to reconsider, motion 458-2024, $100,000 from the OPP stabilization reserve towards the OPP budget line for the 2025 budget.
Councillor Oak.
I'll make that motion to reconsider.
Thank you. So moved, seconder by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion?
So there's no discussion. So just.
So we have a mover and a seconder. There's no discussion. Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Moving right along.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry, just for process. So what that does is that brings the previous motion back on the table that council previously passed. So the motion that would be back on the table was that $100,000 from the OPP stabilization reserve be applied towards the OPP budget line for the 2025 budget. That was previously moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. To provide clarification, if council is not interested in putting that money from the stabilization reserve towards the budget, on the vote, you would vote against.
Okay, thank you. So process, what do we need to do now?
So the motion on the table would be that $100,000 from the OPP stabilization reserve be applied towards the OPP budget line for 2025. If you vote yes, then you're voting in favor of that money going towards it. If you vote no, it's not going towards it.
Thank you. Totally understand. Okay, moved and seconded. If there's no discussion, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries with 5.
Defeated. Yeah.
Defeated. Thank you. Ms. Masula Carlson, please.
Just to clarify then at that point, including the amount brought forward through the updated billing statement, as well as the transfer of the $100,000 not happening and remaining in reserve. The updated tax rate increases are as shown on that memo, which is different than the tax rate increases that were provided at our last budget meeting. So it would be 1.94% rural and 1.2% urban. That's the tax rate at this point.
That's a good number. Any questions, comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rebecca, for that update. I guess next council meeting was when the budget is being proposed. I'm suggesting, or I'd like to suggest that staff come back with some other ideas to take a look at some items or some considerations that we should look at for our next council meeting to consider as part of the final budget discussions.
We'll need a motion for that.
To the mayor, if I may, I did do and did speak to staff, and there have been some suggestions that we can put together for that, and I can provide them to you now, or we can bring back a report at the next meeting.
I think we can hear them now.
I'd sooner see a report and what the various tax calculations would be, so I can digest the information before the meeting. Just that's my thoughts.
Deputy, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I don't know, I think I'd like to see some kind of number, and I don't have an issue with seeing those numbers now. We don't have to pass them now. If there's a project or something, maybe going back into reserves for the following year, which is only going to help us, because we know that there's stuff coming up down the road that's gonna cost us money, and I can't see myself at this 1.94% increase being enough to carry us through. So whether we do a project or whether we take an amount and put it into reserves for the following year, instead of trying to figure out how to do another project right now. I think that's the way I would like to see it go. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? And I just turned to Ms. Masu Carlson, if there's any, maybe perhaps you could just mention some of the items that you're thinking of the projects.
Okay, through the mayor, and I did have the acting treasurer help me out a little bit on this. Just as an approximately 150,000 would be 3.37% rural and 2.51% urban. So that would be at about 150,000. Now, as far as some of the projects that were at a high level brought forward, there was the Par Line resurfacing, the South Road to Crediton Road. That was $157,780. Victoria Drive resurfacing, it was about 214 meters north of Huron Park Road to Wellington Street, and that was 196,000. Woodham Road resurfacing, 58,000. There were some engineering, Kirkton Road, B Line, and a Sable Line ranging from 9 to about 35,000. So we can certainly bring that back, that information to the next meeting. And just for clarification, the budget, then we would bring the report back, and then the budget would be brought back for January. Okay.
Councilor Oak.
Yeah, and thank you, Rebecca, for those numbers. The other option also in the report would be a consideration of maybe putting some money into a reserve as opposed to a project as well. You know, the 194 and the 127 that we're at right at the moment, both are under the rate of inflation. I think we're probably doing ourselves a disservice if we don't consider something that's at inflation or slightly above, because we're going behind. So that's sort of guidance that I would suggest.
And Mr. Giverson did mention at the last meeting about construction inflation was higher, so I want to stay ahead of it. Councillor Vaughn.
Yeah, a couple other things that I'm just thinking about in terms of consideration. We just heard from the Huron Shores Transit. And so whether we want to go forward with an obligation on that, we haven't a whole lot of time in terms of March 25th is when their money runs out. So I imagine they're going to be pretty busy talking to a bunch of municipalities and so forth, trying to figure out a deal. So that might actually impact us. So I'm sort of on the yes, putting money in reserves because we may want to draw on it for something like this. Also too, coming up in the agenda is the Kirkton Woodham. And we haven't actually been given a request from Perth South, who's the administering municipality. But we have an idea of the ask there. They're looking for more money on the operating side of the community hall, I guess it is. And then they're also looking for some signage, which I don't really know where that's going to go, but these are budget asks for 2025 that I'm also suggesting be thought about when you're coming back with the report. The other thing as well, last budget or the last meeting we had, I think we ended up with a 3.57% increase on the rural and the 4.24 increase on the urban as a result of last budget. And I came away with that meeting not pleased in terms of all of a sudden we've jumped up to this particular percentage rate. So I'd like to put on the floor that I still think this is a very tough year for a lot of our citizens out there. I'm even seeing things in CBC reports that are basically saying for a family of 4, there's an expectation that next year, 2025, groceries, they're likely to be looking at an $800 increase in feeding a family of 4. So I don't really feel that we need to go hugely above inflation. I'd like to see, yes, cost of living for sure, but I'd like to see something more around the range of 2.75 to 3% maximum. I don't want us just going crazy on this. We still have economic situation in Canada right now, and I'd like to show some prudence. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments before I turn to our clerk for process here? Councillor Deeb.
I guess, and while I understand too the economic difficulties, I think we also need to be realistic in terms of next year, the following year, and trying to level out any potential tax increases. So I agree 3 is a great target. But if we don't look at what's coming down the road, we're going to fall behind and we're going to increase costs on the most vulnerable in our community. So if we even out those costs over time each year, and I'm not saying it needs to be significantly high, but it would be worthwhile for us to keep in mind that next year there's a lot of capital items that'll need to be done as well. And if we can get ahead, and if staff are able to undertake these projects, then we probably should. It's in our best interest, because otherwise the costs are going to continue to go up and we'll be leaving people behind.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll wait for our clerk to prepare this.
That staff bring back information on further projects and reserve options, as well as tax calculations to the December 16, 2024 meeting for council consideration.
Councillor, Ms. Sue Colson.
Through the mayor, and then I would put in the range, I think it was 2.75 to 3%.
So that's staff bring back information on further projects and reserve options, as well as tax calculations, ranging for 2.75 to 3% tax levy increase to the December 16, 2024 council meeting for consideration.
Okay, and do we have a mover for that? Counselor Oak moves, so moved. Is there a seconder? Counselor Vaughn, is there any further discussion on this? Deputy?
I guess my question is, are we talking rural or urban? Because there is a difference.
Counselor Neeb?
I think too, I'd also, instead of framing it around what a ideal tax rate would be, I'd like to see what projects staff feel are important that need to be moved forward or that can be moved forward. And I think at the next meeting, we can have a discussion about which items we can move forward with and which projects we don't move forward with. I'd much rather see what is important and imperative from staff's perspective before we set a targeted tax rate without knowing that information.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Counselor Vaughn, you have something?
I was just going to say that I'm more than happy to put in a range there. I don't want to see a cornucopia of rates that we have a huge asset management plan situation, and I don't really think that we need to try to tackle it all in 1 year. I think we've got some economic realities to look at. Right now, we just had a discussion not too long ago about how we should be looking at the community foundation a little bit more for those people who just are struggling. And I think this is struggling is still going on. It didn't stop 10 minutes later. So my preference would be to have some meaning around just exactly how high we're prepared to go.
Counselor Oak.
Yeah, I've agreed with the comments here. The only thing I would add in this is, yes, talk about projects, but also consideration of putting some money in a reserve if a project is, I'm suggesting like the reserve of the fire hall, because we know we're moving ahead likely with the Dashwood Fire Hall. Maybe some funds in a reserve for it, because that's a large ticket item that's going to be coming. And so if we can set some money aside for that, that might be another option as well. So, or some additional money for it.
And these are certainly things that can be discussed at the next meeting for sure. Madam Clerk, anything further?
So I've just tweaked that a bit. That staff bring back information on further projects and reserve allocation options, as well as tax calculations ranging between 2.75 to 3% tax rate increase to the December 16th, 2024 meeting for council consideration.
Agreeable, Counselor Oak, you moved it, Counselor Vaughn seconded it. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And it carries with 4. Okay, thank you. Next item, where are we going here now? Ms. Masu Carlson.
I don't believe there's any new business, and then it'll be mayor and councillor comments and announcements.
Okay, thank you. Are there any announcements at this time from members of council? Nothing at all. Counselor Oak, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate South Huron Minor Hockey on a great Pink in the Ring tournament this past weekend. Was able to attend and there was a great turnout at the games. And so I'd like to thank staff for getting all the snow removed out of the parking lots, because it was a busy area with the community theater and tournament and Hawks game. So there was a lot of people in the area. So thank you to staff for that.
Any other comments? Counselor Vaughn.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. I did attend with many people from staff the Try Recycling premises, if you will, the outside premises, to take a look at a tour for all the construction waste that they handle. And I meant to bring in the handouts that I took for all of council, but I left them in my car, so you'll have to get them next week. But I think the important thing to me as a counselor, looking at what they do with construction waste. I was just absolutely amazed that they can do so many things with shingles and what they can do with wood and breaking it down into chips and all the different various air blowers and so forth to get all the bacterias out and preserve these and be able to sell these commodities. We had a little bit of a debrief after we went on our tour. And one of the things that they mentioned was that South Huron is miles ahead of many of the other municipalities in Ontario. In fact, way ahead of the city of Toronto, which was something I thought I was very proud of to hear. We have something around 10,000, 12,000 tons of construction waste that is going to that facility and being turned into something productive for use. So I was kind of taken aback that I found out about it at the actual tour and that I hadn't heard anybody from staff bragging about how we're actually participating in this recycling. So I will bring the handout so you can, if you don't know what Try Recycling is all about, you can read a little bit on it. And I'm hoping that at some point, Rebecca will be able to talk to the staff and have them come in with a little bit of a brag sheet. Maybe we can put something on our social media. I think it was a really good news story. Also had the opportunity to go to the Sunset Community Foundation, just as the mayor did, for the Gren Bend Awards. I just wanted to fill in a couple of little blanks that weren't said, that there were 23 recipients of $120,000 that were given out on that evening. So I know they have 3.2 million or something very close to that in that fund, and South Huron's only beginning, and we have a ways to go before we can start handing out monies like that. But I did think it was important to also tell you that Big Brothers and Big Sisters also were recipients. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, South Huron were recipients of the Gren Bend side of things. The South Huron Awards will be in the spring. I think they're going to be in May. So more to come on that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, not seeing it, so I'll just go over what the mayor has been doing for the last few weeks. On November 19th, I was invited by Archangels Board Chair Dave Frayne to attend the grand opening with Mayor Klopp of Blue Water at the new location in Dashwood. And if you've not been there, I suggest you stop in and take a look around. It was a very rewarding experience. Lots of good things there that are going on. Another long-awaited grand opening was held on November 20th, where the Sanders Street 20-unit affordable housing project was opened, and occupancy will be taking place in a few days. Although the project was approved in the last term of council, it is an example of what happens when we all work together. All levels of government did just that, and I recall a lot of discussions that we were involved in to make it happen. It would not have happened if our staff here at South Huron had not worked so well with the county counterparts and all of us garnering support from the upper levels of government. This is the first affordable housing complex of its kind in over 30 years in South Huron, and I'm very proud that we were a part of it because it's well needed. Now, as you know, Warden Glenn McNeil has decided not to pursue another term as warden at County Council, and on the 27th of November, Warden Jamie Heffer was acclaimed to the position. He will do an excellent job, and each member of County Council will be supporting Warden Heffer in making Huron County the success it continues to be. So I want to publicly thank Glenn McNeil for his dedication and commitment to the residents of Huron County. He was certainly passionate about his role and will continue to serve as a councillor for ACW. On November 30th, I attended the Eco Exeter Christmas event at the high school as part of the awareness for their projects. Great to see such enthusiastic students who are the future of South Huron and the great partnerships they have built within South Huron and beyond. And later that night, I was invited by Jody Sherwanick of the West Coast Lions in Grand Bend to participate in the Christmas parade in Grand Bend, and was joined by our very own Willis the White Wonder, who was able to win the hearts of many who attended. The West Coast Lions certainly did a great job of partnering with the community, and they're very well respected in that area. This past weekend saw over 600 people attend the Cinderella performance by the South Huron Community Theatre in partnership with many sponsors, and by all accounts, it was extremely successful. Special thanks to Deb Homuth, who again led the charge and involved so many young people and young at heart to 3 great performances. That's what I have. If there's anything else, nothing else, we can move on to communications. And I turn over to Ms. Masood Carlson.
Okay, item 15.1. 15.2,
Pull.
15.3,
Paul,
15.4, 15.5, 15.6, 15.7, 15.8, 15.9, 15.10, 15.11, 15.12, 15.13, 15.14, 15.15, which is equals the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Pull.
15.16, which it includes the 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Counselor Need, 15.2, please.
Yep, so we received correspondence from the Exeter Lawn Bowling and they're requesting a building upgrade, and I am not entirely sure if we have any asset management around that facility itself, or whether there has been any money set aside specifically for the building or any of the amenities there. And I'm just wondering if we could get information back from staff about where we're at. I know they have also submitted a proposal. I think we supported a proposal for a grant as well for them. So I just look to staff maybe to whether a report could come back or.
Ms. Masood Carlson.
Through the mayor, certainly we could do a report, and we can also have staff chat with the president or chair of the Exeter Lawn Bowling and get a better picture to bring back on what they're actually requesting.
Counselor Oak.
yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and we did have a building condition assessment on that building as part of that report that we had. So it was under the condition assessment as well as one of our buildings. So.
So we would like a recommendation or a motion, sorry?
Yes, if we could get one. And also I was speaking to them briefly, and it wasn't any expectation for this year's budget. It was, they understand it'll be in 2026 if it's considered at all.
Great, thank you. The Madam Clerk, prepare the motion and we'll go from there.
That staff connect with the Exeter Lawn Bowling Club on their building upgrade proposal and bring information regarding the Exeter Lawn Bowling facility back for council consideration.
So move, Counselor Need.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Oak seconds. Is there any discussion? And call a question all in favor. And that carries with 5. Thank you. Next item, Counselor Oak, 15.3.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just want to briefly speak to the operating grant request. It's been a number of years now, over half a dozen that it's been at the $15,000. Unfortunately, as everything, inflation, insurance, snow removal costs, a lot of people that were doing snow removal in the area have gotten out of it because of insurance reasons, that they couldn't afford the insurance, or it didn't make sense to get the insurance for what they were, the amount that they were doing. And then recently the Kelly has decided to retire from the cleaning, and so they're looking at potentially a new avenue to do that, and all of these costs are higher than they were a few years ago, and so that's why they're looking to see if both South Huron and Perth South would consider increasing their operating grant to 20,000 each. So that was the request. Obviously, with Perth South, the administering body, they'll be coming to us. Might be a little slower than normal with their treasurer now moved on to Lambton Shores, and then they've had a few changes in their council, unfortunately. So and then just quickly, the sign that the Optimists are leading the project and have submitted their information to us and Perth South at the same time. So we're both aware to upgrade their sign. So again, it would be subject to the Perth South administering to look at it and do the proper procedural bylaw for capital. So both the Kirkton Optimists Club are definitely going to be the lead with both looking toward the project, but also fund a lot of the funding of the project. So I'm not sure if Rebecca has any further comments in her discussions with Perth South.
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
Through the chair, I don't really have anything further other than to say, yes, we are just waiting because we don't have the final numbers confirmed from Perth South at this point.
Thank you. So do we need any further on this at this time then? Councillor Oak?
So just wondering, is this something that we should consider putting in the budget, or is this something that could be a budget amendment later on? Because I know in the past, Perth South has been later doing their budget than what we do, and just wondering what the what your thoughts are, is what we should or shouldn't include in our budget deliberations.
Mayor, at this point, we don't know because the upgrades to the sign, we're not sure how much is going to be covered by the Optimist. So we really don't have any clear idea of how much it would be. The actual operating, the 5,000, I mean, that's ultimately we have that number, but the other number we have no idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay, nothing further on that. We'll move on to Councillor Vaughan, 1515.
Right. So a number of municipalities have obviously supported this resolution or signed on with this resolution. And I'm looking at this as really a piece of advocacy in terms of trying to look for a more sustainable and predictable way to finance municipalities. Many of what they're asking for is all relating to land transfer tax and at the two different levels, the federal and the provincial governments. As everyone knows here, one of our primary revenue generators is property tax. So it all flows quite nicely with things relating to land and property. So I would like to see South Huron join on the advocacy train here and send in its own resolution.
Very well. So do you need a recommendation, staff?
So just for clarification, is council looking for a letter or sorry, resolution to support or to read out pass this resolution similar to all the ones that have passed?
Yeah, I won't swear that I read every one of them, but I read about 4 of them and they all look to be the same. And what I envisioned was that we would issue the same thing ourselves.
Very well. I'll wait for our staff to prepare something for us.
Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services, which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current sources of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax, LTT, on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and services tax, GST, on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistributing a portion of the provincial land tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burden on residents or home buyers. And whereas a redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives, supporting local economic growth and improving the quality of life for residents. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of South Huron formally requests the provincial government to consider redistribution a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities. And be it further resolved that the municipality of South Huron Council calls on federal government to allocate the percentage of GST collected on property sales to municipalities. And be it further resolved that this redistribution of the land transfer tax and GST should be structured to provide predictable and sustainable funding to municipalities, allowing for better long-term planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring that local governments receive a fair share of revenue to address critical infrastructure needs. And be it further resolved that copies of the resolution be forwarded to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Doug Ford, the Ontario Minister of Finance, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local members of Parliament, and members of provincial Parliament. And be it further resolved that copies of the resolution be forwarded to all 444 municipalities of Ontario, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities for their endorsement and advocacy.
So moved, Counselor Vaughn.
So moved.
Seconder. Counselor Neeb, any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries us 6. Thank you. Okay, recommendation, Ms. Sue Carlson.
That South Huron Council receive communication items not otherwise dealt with.
A mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 6. Thank you. There's no closed session, therefore no report from closed session. Bylaws 19.1, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 66, 2024, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the November 12th, 2024 budget meeting, November 19th, 2024 special council meeting, and December 9th, 2024 public and regular council meetings.
A mover, please. Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Carries with 6. Thank you. And number 20, please.
That South Huron Council hereby adjourns at 7:53 p.m. to meet again on December 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Neeb. No discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 6.